Hi, Cassie. Welcome to Life Talks. Uh,
Hi.
Hi, so glad to have you here. I like your intro about being a career coach. I would like you to introduce yourself and what's your unique value proposition as you have coached so many people, or what you have learned that stood out.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me today. I'm excited to be here. My name is Cassie. I'm a career coach, and I have spent the last 8 years career coaching, a good chunk of that working in the higher education realm with college students, but also coaching a wide range of individuals on all aspects of their career, all industries. The specific population that I've been working with in the last year or so is early career professionals, typically 2 to 5 years out of school, who are really ready to make their next career move. And I would say the unique value proposition that I bring to coaching is that I really coach from the lens of happenstance, which is a career development theory that I'm happy to dive into,
Yeah, I
but
would love to
it is
know.
yeah, this theory essentially looks at our careers and states that they are not a one-time decision, which is a big
Mhm.
misconception among all people, but especially job seekers, but that our careers are really built out of a series of decisions that we make throughout our lives, but also a series of experiences that are both planned and that we work really hard for, but also experiences that are unplanned and that we could have never predicted. So I like being the person that can kind of take all of that information, take a person's education, experience, passions, interests, and so much more, and help them kind of create that roadmap and the strategies to level up and reach their goals.
Sounds super interesting. So you help in the planned parts more that, okay, this is what you can do. As you said, some things are unplanned and
Mhm.
have some more predictability, but there are certain other things that are their passions. So you help in that as well. Like what can they do with their passions and turn into,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, definitely. I view the work I do really as kind of like the connector of dots. It's
Okay.
looking at, again, all the pieces of someone's life, the elements that are on their resume, looking at the things that they're both interested in, but then also looking at the other things that they want and need out of a career. That's another big aspect for me as a coach is that there's lots of things we all want to do or that we would
Mhm.
love to do, but finding careers in particular that align with the things we want and need out of our life based on our life and the other things that we have going on is another really important aspect, and I think probably as many people listening can resonate with it. Sometimes harder when you're in it to kind of see what the options are or to draw those connections, and so I like being that person that can kind of connect the dots for others.
That sounds amazing. And I really liked what you said. And based on my understanding, that people think about, like, let's say I'm changing a job and that's where I'm stuck and try to optimize. Is it the best, perfect choice? But that's just like not forever, especially in today's world. The
Yeah.
jobs are transient in nature. So you try to go beyond that next step, but look further down the lane that, okay, how this is helping you in achieving your roadmap, as you said, next step in the roadmap, because of course there is no destination. It's always a journey.
Right. Yeah, it's always a journey and there's
Mhm.
always so many elements that we cannot predict. I think
Absolutely.
that's always been a fact of life, but especially in the last couple of years, the ways that careers, industries, the world in general ebb and flow and how that then changes or dictates what our careers mean to us and the work that we do and how we do it,
Mhm.
all of those factors, then even if you have an ultimate goal 20 years down the line, there are going to be factors that impact that from life. And so I think having a coach, me or someone else, kind of being able to guide you on that path and helping you see that it's not just one direct path to that thing, but
Mhm.
that there are different paths we can take to get there and we can draw those connections in a lot of different ways while also then having the alignment with the life that you want and the other things that are important outside of just like the job, quote unquote.
Absolutely. Would love to know what has been super interesting or like different kind of like you where you helped somebody to get, like, they were thinking about something and then you help them to enlighten them in a way. And any interesting example that you want to share?
Yeah, sure. I had a client I was working with. This was actually a couple of years ago now, which feels wild, but they came from a background in fitness, personal training, athletic training. that realm, really kind of people connection, the sciences and all of that. And they quickly found that that job just wasn't in alignment with the
Mm-hmm.
life that they wanted in terms of the hours and the unpredictability and all of that. It quickly became draining. And while it was a huge passion area, it didn't align anymore. And
Interesting.
so through the work that we did and some career exploration, we really started to look at like what are some other areas of interest, but
Mm-hmm.
also what are some strengths that this
Right.
individual had? What are the other skills that not only they have, but that they'd be willing to
Yes,
learn? And
absolutely.
ultimately, of course, I make it sound so simple, but through several discussions and a lot of decision making and other things, that person ultimately decided to go down a software development track and to
Okay.
pursue additional education through a boot camp and that type of thing to gain the skills that they needed, but now is working in that field and has been able to kind of move up in that field and really find that balance in terms of both still having a human connection based on the teams that they work with and the way that they collaborate with a company, but also having a more kind of traditional 9 to 5 set hours, flexibility in terms of working remotely versus going into the office, and with a company that they just feel really aligned with. So I think that I like that example because it is a little bit more of a drastic change
Right.
from like personal training to something in
Yeah.
software. Um, but definitely a success story that when I started working with that person, I didn't know where we were going either, right?
I
I
absolutely
thought
agree.
maybe we'd find something else still really related to like fitness, health and wellness. And so a tech move was
Yeah,
definitely
they could
unexpected
be.
on all ends, but good.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think they could be like a product manager in a my fitness app or something, my like
Mhm.
something where they are still in that health domain, but
Right.
get to do the things that matter in their lifestyle as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. So Casey, how do you coach your like how you coach others? How has coaching helped to achieve a career that you love? It's
Wow,
a
I
tough
love
one, I
this
know.
question. Yeah, no, I love this question because I think that it's a really interesting lens to be a career coach and to be able to see the dots for other people and draw those connections. And then to have to very intentionally like sit myself down and kind of have some of those similar career conversations that I have with others, with myself, and to really kind of force myself to walk through some of those exercises. And I'm a big proponent of coaches. Coaches need coaches, doctors need doctors type of thing.
Yeah.
And so I have certainly used my network of career coaches and all of that to support me in that process. But it is something that I've had to be very intentional about. And I think both for myself and others, the last couple of years, as the world has changed so much and the way that we work has changed so much, that was really kind of a big reckoning for me too, and recognizing like what in the work that I'm doing is really energizing me? What do I
Mhm.
really love doing? And what are the pieces that are really challenging? And that in challenging in a sense of like, I just am not enjoying this
Mhm.
anymore. And kind of starting there, like what's giving me energy, what's draining me.
Mhm.
But then also really looking outside of my exact tasks, the job I was at, the exact company or organization, and just kind of asking myself, like, what do I want my life to look like?
Mhm.
And for me, a big portion of that is that I was living in a state that was several hours, 6 plus hours away from my family and where most of my community was. That was a choice I had made like 5 years prior because the job was so enticing and I was so excited about it. And at that point in time, 5 plus years ago, that was the best choice I could have made for my career.
Mhm.
And I would have career coached myself to make
Right.
that choice.
Yeah.
But as time changes, I had to kind of like coach myself through that process of like, this just isn't in alignment anymore. And I
Mhm.
have to make a decision that is in alignment and a decision that supports the life I want outside of just work. And so that led me to, as of January 2021, I'm like, are
Mhm.
the dates right? So a little over a year now, I've been 100% career coaching in a private practice, kind of freelance capacity, working with clients, which has really given me that freedom that I wanted. It allowed me to move to the location that I wanted to be in and to just incorporate some other elements of my life that I just physically couldn't do
Absolutely.
based on where I was previously.
Totally. Yeah, thanks for sharing your story. So that's basically so it's like what I think it's very inspiring to see that someone who's a coach also needs to coach themselves. So what is like this that we want to like let's because the topic is like taking risk. What do you recommend somebody's like career changing job? Is it always like gonna be risky or can we build some safety net around it? Like any thoughts on that?
Yeah, of course. There is always going to be risk with our careers. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's important to know because a lot of people make a decision to either make a change with their career or to not because both feel risky, right? And so
Hmm.
recognizing
Yeah,
that like staying put in one place, that is equally as much of a risk as it is to move on. And so when you want or need some of that security, I think that's where implementing some other strategies and really being strategic with making that move can kind of mitigate some of that risk, right? Like for me, I knew it was important to move, and I knew that staying where I was, that was risky in the sense that I would not feel fulfilled and that I would just kind of live a life of like, it's fine. And I didn't want that.
I agree.
So that, right, that made the choice easy. It didn't necessarily feel that risky in a sense.
Mm.
But the risk that I did then battle was like, okay, I'm not going to job search. I'm not going to have a full-time job. And so the security of that is where the risk came in.
Mm-hmm.
But I was also at a point in my life where that risk felt very manageable. So I think kind of knowing where you're at and knowing what risks feel manageable for you. I moved and started, my company freelancing the way I wanted to. I didn't have a mortgage. I don't have kids to take care of. Like for me to be able to do that, very different than someone else who does have a lot of those other
Absolutely.
responsibilities, right? So that's one thing, is just kind of knowing where you're at. The other thing I would say is that a lot of times people kind of battle that risk of like, if I go somewhere else, is it going to be like quote unquote worse? Right? Is
Mm-hmm.
the job going to be worse, or the
Yeah.
company going to
Risk
be
of
worse?
unknown, right? That, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that's where implementing some other strategies can be such a game changer in kind of mitigating that risk. You'll never know with 100% certainty. But if you're taking the time to really learn about a company or learn about a field, to talk to people who have worked at that company and in that field, to get their honest opinions
Mhm.
on the management style and the work life balance or the other things that are important to you, that does a couple things. It helps you make a more informed decision. It also, though, means that you're not wasting your time
Right.
applying to or interviewing for a job at a company that doesn't align. So
Totally
it
agree.
often is like a little bit more work on the back end, but it can lead to more efficiency and better outcomes on that end. So I know there's a big trend right now with people like rage applying is what they're calling it. I also call it panic applying. That, and there's success stories out there of people who've taken this approach of just applying frantically to a lot of things and getting a job and getting a
Mhm.
promotion or a salary increase. And I think those stories are unique. I also will be really interested in like the follow up on those stories because, a raise is phenomenal, a new job is phenomenal, but if you find out 2 months into it that you hate the way the company operates or you don't like the management style, we're essentially back at square one. So I'm a big proponent of like, do a little bit more work on the back end, be strategic, have a plan, and that will lead to better things in the
Yeah,
long
I
run.
also think sometimes, as you said, it could be somebody's situation where they just want a job and they don't care in that point of time in their life. These other things, maybe it's a short-term trade-off, right? Like, okay, I could be not super happy or fulfilling, but it's meeting their other needs. But I
Yep.
agree, it's dependent on their individual situation. It's always better to take a more informed decision. And I think people are generally pretty open. Even if you ask a hiring manager, be open and transparent that I really want to I like reduce the surprise. Actually, one of my interviewers once said, "Hey, let's call it surprise minimization session and
Yeah.
ask me anything." So I really, really like that was in Meta, like in team matching. And I was like, wow, I love it because really it's good for you, good for me. We find as much as data. to get a better decision and minimize surprises for a better, like, fulfilling career, and for him to get a better employee who is more dedicated and committed. Yeah.
Totally. I love that that was a part of the interviewing process. And I think that's a good example of how, like, it's not just about them wanting you, that company
Exactly.
offering you the job. It is also equally, and again, of course, right, there's scenarios where people are like, I just
Right.
need a job. And I get that. But there's also then scenarios where
Absolutely.
it's also you interviewing that company and really making sure it's a good fit
Um,
and getting
as
rid
you
of
said,
those.
it's not just impacting your next move, but your entire career. And as you said, it's like one life which is limited. It's not unlimited lives, and you can't really afford to be unhappy. That's the trade-off and the risk of not moving out. As you said, people always think, okay, this new move could be risky, but staying in the current is equally risky, which I think we tend to overlook at times.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah,
Any
I
tips
agree.
you would like to give to someone who is listening and maybe in the similar limbo, that what should they do? Like, where should they start? Any takeaways that we can share?
Yeah, of course. I think a really good takeaway is to start tracking, whether it's a note in your phone, a sticky note, somewhere else. Just start kind of paying attention to and writing down what are the things that you're excited to do? What are the things that give you energy? What are the things that are draining you? And that can be as simple as like, all the meetings I'm in are draining, or like, I hate answering emails. It's fine. Like, it doesn't have to be this huge thing that you're writing up, but quick bullet
One
points of like,
question here. So let's make it even more simpler. How do somebody know? Let's say they are going from one meeting, then writing some action items, doing something, that where are they getting drained and where they're getting energized? Like, what are some identifiers? Most of us can know, but maybe, it's better to make it easier for our
yeah, yeah.
audience.
Of course. So I think tasks that you're putting off that, kind of seem to circulate on the to-do list, definitely that's a good clue if you're not excited to do them, or if you're like hoping your boss or supervisor isn't going to ask you to do them. That's a good clue versus tasks that you are quicker at, more efficient at, eager to be part of.
Mhm.
Even thinking about if you're in a position where you have the opportunity to like volunteer, say yes, raise your hand for projects versus those that you don't, can be a good starting point. And that's ultimately what this exercise is, a starting point. It's not going to answer all of your questions, but it can start that reflection process for you to then start to be more aware. And that's really what we're doing, is just
I
starting to
love it.
gain
Yeah.
awareness. Yeah, of like, what is giving me energy, and what at the end of the day am I like, if I never had to do that again, this would be great, is a really helpful starting point.
And even if they go to like any career coach or something, I think that is the question that somebody has to do on their own. Nobody can figure out, what do you like doing, right?
Right. Yeah. And I think that's the other thing too. I often start with a lot of just like brainstorming activities and lists, but I also encourage everyone, even if you're not job searching, if you don't think you ever will, wherever you're at, start a list. Again, phone, sticky note, wherever. Start a list and keeping track of the times that you say, I'd really like to, or
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't it be cool if? And this is a list. I have it in my phone. It's been ongoing for years. It's
Okay.
called my Wouldn't It Be Cool list. And it's just a list of every time, like, even if I'm just in a conversation with friends and I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if we did an X, Y, and Z thing? Wouldn't it be cool if we did a road trip? Or I'm watching TV and I'm like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if I like made that merch or something? Or
I love
whatever
it.
I'm doing.
Wouldn't be a
Just
full
starting.
list. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Like,
what that does is it just gives you, again, something else to reflect back on and to start to look for trends. I've shared this example several times in different places, but I really quickly started to notice, this was a little over a year ago, that my list had a lot of things that were related to music. I love live music.
mm-hmm.
I'm all the time saying to my friends, like, I would love to be a tour manager. And like, the reality is, I don't actually want to be a tour manager. I just
Okay.
love live music. And so that list did not change a single thing with my career, who
Mm-hmm.
I coach, how I coach, any of that. But what it did do was tell me, maybe this is something that I just need to bring into my life more. And so last year, throughout 2022, I made a really conscious effort to like seek out going to concerts and finding live music venues and just making that a bigger part of my life again. Because I think sometimes we expect and want like our career to provide all of this fulfillment, and we forget that there can be things we love and enjoy that provide that outlet somewhere else. So that list can be career focused, and it can help us think about, like, maybe you need a job that involves
Mhm.
creativity or that
Mhm.
involves other things. But it can also just be a good, like, holistic list to
I
kind of
agree.
play from.
Yeah, and then I remember once I was thinking that then you identify the patterns. Like if somebody asks you, "Hey, do you want to go out eat or watch a movie or go to a concert?" and you are like, "Okay, I don't want to think about it. Concert is gonna be my top priority
Yeah.
because I know it's gonna be more fulfilling." So it eases your decision making. And I like what you said. Maybe there are 10 things that your list brings in, and then you can make a career. Okay, what are the 3 4 things that I can achieve in my professional life, and other things maybe not with the professional but in personal life I need to incorporate. I like that framework. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing.
Of course. Yeah. Hopefully it's a good starting point for people.
Yeah, thank you, Cassie, so much for being in the show. I really thought that it's a good reminder for myself. I know this like in a theoretical way that yeah,
Mhm.
for even for career or fun stuff that we need to identify and stick to that. But it's like so refreshing to continuously imbibe that in their life, and maybe I'll have more stickies, cool
Yeah.
lists around home now.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. This was great.
Yeah.